Tuesday, and I knew immediately that people were going to die. I was standing on the inspection platform underneath the Riverside Bridge, 30 feet above the morning traffic, when I saw it. A hairline fracture running along the main support beam, no thicker than a human hair, but growing as I watched. In 8 years, with the Army Corps of Engineers, and 25 years building civilian infrastructure, I'd learned to read steel like other people read books. This particular story was about to have a very bad ending. My name is Jason Rodriguez. I'm 49 years old, and that Tuesday morning, I was the lead structural engineer on a $180 million bridge renovation that was supposed to reopen to heavy commercial traffic in 6 hours. The crack wasn't there Monday night. I'd done the final walkthrough myself, same as I'd done on every project since leaving the Army. Back in Iraq, we built bridges under mortar fire, and you learned fast that cutting corners meant your convoy didn't make it home. The habit stuck. Check everything twice, trust your instincts, and never sign off on something that makes your gut clench. My gut was clenching now. I pulled out my phone and took 12 photos of the crack from different angles, then climbed down to get my stress meter. The numbers that came back made my mouth go dry. The beam was flexing 18% more than the design specifications allowed. Under normal traffic, that meant gradual failure over months. Under the heavy commercial loads we were supposed to certify today, it meant catastrophic collapse within weeks. I was still staring at the readings when Brandon Kane found me. "Rodriguez, what's the holdup?" Kane was 41, Harvard MBA, and had been appointed project director 6 months ago when the previous guy had a heart attack. Kane wore $500 suits to construction sites and treated 30-year veterans like we were intern assistants. "The DOT inspection team is here. They want to start the heavy load testing in an hour." I showed him the crack and the stress readings. "We can't certify this, Brandon. Look at these numbers. The beam is compromised." Kane barely glanced at my tablet. "It's a surface crack, probably from thermal expansion. These old bridges always develop character marks. This isn't character. This is a structural warning. If we put a fully loaded semi on this bridge..." "Then we fix it during the next maintenance cycle," Kane interrupted. "Jason, I need you to focus on the big picture here. We're already 3 weeks behind schedule and $2.1 million over budget. The mayor's office is asking questions, the contractors want their final payments, and I've got emergency relief trucks that need to cross this bridge tomorrow morning." I'd heard about the relief convoy. Hurricane damage downstate had cut off 2 major highways, and they needed to route heavy supply trucks through our bridge to reach the affected areas. People were suffering, waiting for food, water, medical supplies. The pressure to get the bridge open was enormous. "Give me 48 hours, I said. "Let me bring in a specialist to analyze this crack pattern. We can..." 48 hours? Kane's voice jumped an octave. "Jason, those relief trucks are loaded and ready to roll. Every hour we delay means people don't get the help they need. You're talking about delaying disaster relief over a crack that might not even be significant." That hit me where it hurt. I'd been in disaster zones. I knew what it meant when relief supplies got held up by red tape and bureaucratic delays. But I also knew what happened when bridges failed under load. In 2003, outside Baghdad, I'd watched an insurgent bomb take out a bridge while a convoy was crossing. 18 soldiers died because someone hadn't properly assessed the structural integrity after the blast damage. The image of twisted steel and burning vehicles had stayed with me for 20 years. "Brandon, in the Army we had a saying, better to be cautious and late than sorry and dead. This crack is telling us something important." Kane's phone buzzed. He answered it, walking a few steps away. "Yes, Commissioner." "No. We're just finishing final inspections. Rodriguez is being thorough, but we'll have certification signed within the hour." "Understood." He hung up and turned back to me. His expression had shifted from irritated to calculating. That was Transportation Commissioner Walsh. He's personally guaranteeing the governor that this bridge will be open for the relief convoy. He's staked his political reputation on it. Politics don't change engineering reality. Don't they? Kane stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Jason, you've got a son fresh out of engineering school, right? Ryan, working for Morrison and Associates downtown?" The threat was subtle but clear. In our industry, reputations mattered. A senior engineer who got labeled as difficult or uncooperative could find himself blacklisted, and that reputation could follow his family. Are you threatening me? Brandon, I'm reminding you that we're all part of a system here. The system works when everyone does their part. Your part is signing off on this bridge so people can get the help they need. I looked up at the bridge deck above us, where morning commuters were already starting to cross in their cars. Normal passenger vehicles, maybe 2 tons each. The relief trucks would weigh 40 tons fully loaded, 20 times more stress on a beam that was already showing failure signs. I need to call in a structural specialist, I said finally. Someone independent to verify these readings. Kane checked his watch. You've got until 2 p.m. If you don't have that certification signed by then, I'm bringing in someone who will. After Kane left, I sat on a construction crate and called my son Ryan. He was 22, graduated summa cum laude from state, and had landed his dream job at one of the city's most prestigious engineering firms. His whole career was ahead of him. Dad? Shouldn't you be at work? I am at work. Just taking a break. I paused, watching cars cross overhead. Ryan, remember what I taught you about the difference between engineering in peacetime and engineering in war? You said in war you don't get second chances to get it right. That's right. But there's another difference. In war, you always know who the enemy is. In peacetime, sometimes the enemy is wearing a suit and calling himself your boss. Ryan laughed. Dad, you're being dramatic. Everything okay? I wanted to tell him everything. About the crack, about Kane's threats, about the impossible choice between disaster relief and structural safety. But Ryan was just starting his career. He didn't need to inherit his father's conflicts. Everything's fine, son. Just remember what I taught you about integrity. Sometimes doing the right thing costs you something, but the cost of doing the wrong thing is always higher. After I hung up, I spent the next 4 hours running every diagnostic test I could think of: ultrasonic, analysis, magnetic particle inspection, stress modeling under different load scenarios. The results were consistent and terrifying. The bridge could handle normal passenger traffic indefinitely. It could probably survive a few heavy trucks crossing one at a time at low speed. But a convoy of 40-ton relief trucks crossing at highway speeds? The computer models showed a 73% probability of catastrophic failure. At 1:45 p.m., I walked into Kane's trailer with my decision. Kane was on his phone when I walked into the trailer, gesturing animatedly while talking to someone about delivery schedules. He held up one finger to make me wait, which told me everything I needed to know about how this conversation was going to go. I can't certify the bridge for heavy commercial traffic, I said as soon as he hung up. Kane's face went through 3 different expressions in about 2 seconds. Surprise, anger, then a kind of cold calculation that reminded me of officers I'd known who were more worried about their promotion than their soldiers. Jason, we've been through this. The crack is minor. I set my tablet on his desk and pulled up the stress analysis. Look at these numbers. I ran full computer simulations using the actual loads from the relief convoy. There's a 73% probability of structural failure if those trucks cross at normal highway speeds. Kane glanced at the screen for maybe 3 seconds. Computer models are just estimates. They build in huge safety margins. Brandon, I've seen bridges fail. In Iraq, we had to inspect structures after IED damage, decide whether they could carry convoy traffic. You learn real fast that when steel starts talking to you, you listen. This isn't Iraq, Jason. This is downtown infrastructure that's been carrying traffic for 40 years. And it's been carrying passenger cars, not 40-ton relief trucks. I pulled up a photo of the crack. This fracture runs 8 inches along the main support beam. It wasn't there yesterday. Metal doesn't just decide to crack for no reason. Kane stood up and walked to his window, looking out at the bridge. The relief convoy is staging at the National Guard depot right now. 18 trucks loaded with emergency medical supplies, water purification equipment, and food for 10,000 people. Those trucks are supposed to roll at dawn tomorrow. Then we route them through the tunnel. It adds an hour to the trip, but... An hour? Kane spun around. Jason, there are people in shelters right now who haven't had clean water in 3 days. Every minute we delay means more suffering. I understood the pressure. Really, I did. But I also understood structural engineering, and I'd learned something important during my military service. Good intentions don't override physics. Give me until tonight, I said. Let me bring in Dr. Sarah Williams from the university. She's the best structural analyst in the state. If she says the bridge is safe, Dr. Williams charges $500 an hour, and we're already over budget. I'll pay for it myself. Kane stopped pacing. You'll pay for it yourself? That's right. This is too important to guess about. For a moment, Kane looked almost human, like maybe he was actually considering the possibility that I might be right. Then his phone rang. Kane here. Yes, Commissioner. I understand. No, we're still on schedule. There's just a minor procedural issue. Yes, sir, absolutely. He hung up and looked at me with an expression I recognized from Iraq. It was the look of a man who'd just been told his orders, whether those orders made sense or not. Jason, I'm going to be straight with you. Commissioner Walsh just informed me that his job is on the line over this bridge opening. If this project fails, he's out. If he's out, his replacement will be someone who remembers which contractors and engineers were team players during the crisis. Are you threatening my career, Brandon? I'm explaining reality. This industry is smaller than you think. Word gets around about engineers who can't work within budget and schedule constraints. I thought about Ryan, fresh out of school, building his reputation at Morrison and Associates. I thought about my own career, 25 years of building projects that kept people safe. I thought about 18 trucks full of emergency supplies and 10,000 people who needed them. Then I thought about the sound a bridge makes when it fails. I'd heard it once in Iraq. It's not a crash or a bang. It's a long, groaning shriek as steel tears apart under more stress than it can handle. Brandon, I need you to listen to me carefully. I've been doing this for 25 years. I've built bridges in war zones where getting it wrong meant watching good people die. I've never, not once, signed off on something that I thought was unsafe. Jason, I'm not finished. I stood up and Kane took a step back. If you want to fire me, but I'm not signing that certification. Get Dr. Williams out here, get an independent analysis, do whatever you want. But I will not put my name on a document that authorizes 40-ton trucks to cross a bridge with a stress fracture in the main support beam. Kane was quiet for a long time. Outside, I could hear the sound of afternoon traffic crossing the bridge. Normal cars, light loads, well within the safety margins. But in 14 hours, those relief trucks would be lined up at the approach, waiting for clearance to cross. You're fired, Kane said finally. Insubordination and failure to perform assigned duties. Security will escort you off the property in 10 minutes. I'd expected it, but hearing the words still hit hard. 25 years of building infrastructure, of keeping people safe, of teaching young engineers how to do things right. All of it ending because I wouldn't compromise on public safety. Brandon, when those trucks cross that bridge, and it fails, you're going to have to live with what comes next. Not just the legal liability, not just the lawsuits, but the knowledge that you chose politics over people. Get out, Jason. I packed my personal tools into a canvas bag my father had given me when I started in construction. Hand levels, measuring devices, the small things that a good engineer never trusts to company equipment. As I was packing, Shane Collins appeared in the doorway. Shane was head of security, former Navy Seabees, and one of the few people on the project who understood what it meant to be responsible for other people's lives. Mr. Rodriguez, I'm sorry about this. Not your fault, Shane. I shouldered the bag. Listen, that crack I found this morning, keep an eye on it. Take pictures if it gets bigger. Shane glanced around to make sure Kane wasn't listening. Mr. Rodriguez, I've been walking this bridge every day for 6 months. That crack wasn't there yesterday, and it's definitely gotten bigger since this morning. How much bigger? When you showed it to me this morning, I could barely see it. Now it's wide enough to stick a business card in. The crack was growing. Under normal traffic loads, without any additional stress, the fracture was propagating through the steel. If it was doing that now, what would happen when the relief convoy hit it at highway speeds? Shane, I need you to do me a favor. Name it. Take photos of that crack every 4 hours. Date stamp them. And if anyone asks, you're just documenting potential safety hazards for the daily report. Consider it done. As Shane escorted me to the gate, I looked back at the bridge one more time. From the ground, it looked solid and permanent, a testament to good engineering and quality construction. But I knew what was hidden beneath the surface, a hairline fracture that was growing longer and deeper with every passing hour. In 12 hours, 18 trucks carrying emergency relief supplies would line up at the approach, trusting that the engineers had done their job correctly. But the engineers had been overruled by the administrators. I walked across the street to a coffee shop and took out my phone. It was time to make some calls. The first call I made was to Ashley Martinez at the city planning office. Ashley and I had worked together on 2 previous projects, and she'd earned a reputation for being thorough to the point of obsession. More importantly, she had the authority to halt construction if public safety was at risk. Jason, I heard what happened. Kane's already putting out word that you were terminated for refusing reasonable work assignments. That's his version, I said, stirring sugar into coffee that tasted like it had been brewing since morning. My version is that I refused to sign a death warrant. Ashley, I need you to know that the Riverside Bridge has a structural fracture that's actively growing. If they put heavy trucks on that bridge tomorrow, people are going to die. There was a long pause on the line. Jason, you know I trust your judgment, but Kane's got political backing on this project. Commissioner Walsh personally approved the timeline. Politics don't change engineering reality. The main support beam has an 8-inch crack that's growing under normal traffic loads. I've got photos, stress analysis, computer modeling. Everything points to catastrophic failure under heavy loads. What do you need from me? Access to the original construction records from the renovation. I think someone substituted cheaper materials to save costs, and that's why the beam is failing now. That would require a formal investigation. Jason, if I'm wrong about this, if you're wrong, you waste some paperwork and Kane gets mad at you. If I'm wrong, 18 relief trucks and their drivers end up in the river. Ashley was quiet for a moment. I could hear keyboards clicking in the background, the sound of a busy municipal office. Meet me at Murphy's Diner on 5th Street in an hour. And Jason, bring everything you have. The second call was harder. I dialed Ryan's number knowing I was about to drop a bomb on his promising young career. Dad? Twice in one day? You must really be having a slow day at work. Ryan, I need to tell you something, and it's going to be difficult to hear. I got fired this morning. Silence. Then, what? Dad, that's impossible. You're the most experienced engineer on the project. I explained the situation as objectively as I could, sticking to the technical facts. The crack, the stress analysis, the computer modeling showing failure probability. When I finished, Ryan was quiet for a long time. Dad, are you absolutely sure about this? I mean, Kane's got a good reputation. Harvard MBA, successful track record on major projects. Son, remember what I taught you about the difference between leadership and management? You said leaders make decisions based on what's right. Managers make decisions based on what's convenient. That's right. And right now, I'm dealing with a manager who's more worried about his schedule than about structural integrity. What are you going to do? Whatever it takes to keep that bridge from falling down. Ryan, I need you to understand something. This might get messy. Kane has connections, and he's already spreading word that I was difficult and insubordinate. That could affect your career. Dad, stop. You taught me that integrity isn't situational. If you say the bridge is dangerous, then it's dangerous. What do you need me to do? That's when I knew I'd raised my son right. At Murphy's Diner, Ashley spread construction documents across a scarred table while I showed her the photos and data from the bridge inspection. She was 44, razor sharp, and had earned her position by catching problems that other inspectors missed. These stress readings are definitely concerning, she said, studying the printouts, but technically they're still within the broad safety margins established by the federal guidelines. Look at the progression, I said, pointing to the chronological data. Monday, normal stress patterns. Tuesday morning, 12% variance. Tuesday, afternoon, 18% variance. The crack is growing under normal loads. Ashley pulled out her tablet and started accessing city databases. I'm pulling the material delivery records for the renovation project. If someone substituted inferior materials, they did. I showed her photos I'd taken with my personal phone during construction. These are the steel beams that were supposed to be installed versus what was actually delivered. Different grade steel, lighter gauge, but similar enough that most inspectors wouldn't notice. Ashley looked up from her tablet. Jason, if this is accurate, someone committed fraud. Major infrastructure fraud. We're talking federal charges. I don't care about charges. I care about keeping people alive. She typed rapidly, cross-referencing delivery schedules with inspection reports. According to this, the materials were approved by... She stopped, staring at the screen. By who? Brandon Kane. He signed off on all the material substitutions personally, so Kane hadn't just been ignoring safety concerns. He'd been actively covering up substandard construction to stay on budget and on schedule. The stress fracture wasn't just a random failure. It was the inevitable result of putting 40-year-old loads on 20-year rated materials. Ashley, how quickly can you get a halt order on the bridge certification? If I file the paperwork tonight, I can have an emergency injunction by morning. But Jason, Kane will know it came from you. He'll make your life very difficult. Let him try. While Ashley worked on the legal documentation, I made a third call. Dr. Sarah Williams at the State University was the foremost expert on metal fatigue analysis in the region. More importantly, she was someone whose reputation was so solid that even Kane wouldn't dare question her findings. Dr. Williams, this is Jason Rodriguez. We worked together on the Harbor Tunnel project 5 years ago. Jason, of course. How can I help you? I explained the situation, sending her the photos and stress data over email while we talked. As she reviewed the information, I could hear her intake of breath. Jason, these photos show classic fatigue failure progression. The crack pattern indicates the metal is failing along the grain boundaries. Under cyclical loading, this will propagate rapidly. How rapidly? Given the current crack length and the stress levels you're measuring, I'd estimate total failure within 50 to 100 heavy load cycles. If those relief trucks cross at highway speeds, each truck represents approximately 3 normal load cycles. I did the math. 18 trucks times 3 load cycles each equals 54 cycles. Well, within the failure range. Dr. Williams, would you be willing to provide an independent analysis for the city planning office? Absolutely. This is exactly the kind of situation where an engineer's responsibility to public safety overrides all other considerations. I can have a preliminary report ready by midnight. By 8 p.m., the pieces were falling into place. Ashley had filed the emergency injunction. Dr. Williams was preparing her independent analysis. Shane Collins had sent me photos showing the crack had grown another 2 inches during the afternoon. But Kane wasn't sitting idle either. My phone rang at 8:30. Jason, this is Brandon Kane. I understand you've been spreading false information about the bridge project. I've been sharing accurate engineering data with qualified professionals. You've been sabotaging a critical infrastructure project during a humanitarian crisis. I want you to know that I've contacted Morrison and Associates about your son's employment. They're reviewing whether they want to keep an engineer whose father has such poor professional judgment. The threat was out in the open now. Kane was going after Ryan to get to me. Brandon, you can threaten me all you want, but you can't threaten physics. That bridge is going to fail, and when it does, all the political connections in the world won't save you. We'll see about that. He hung up, and I sat back in the diner booth, feeling the weight of 25 years of professional reputation and my son's promising career hanging in the balance. But I also felt something else. The certainty that comes from knowing you're doing the right thing, no matter what it costs you. The call came at 5:47 a.m. Mr. Rodriguez, this is Shane Collins. You need to get down to the bridge right now. I was already awake, had been since 4 a.m., drinking coffee and watching the local news for any word about the emergency injunction. What's happening, Shane? The crack, sir. It's not a crack anymore. It's a full split. The beam separated about an inch during the night shift. I've got photos. I was in my truck and driving before Shane finished talking. The relief convoy was supposed to start crossing at 7 a.m. We had 1 hour and 13 minutes. When I arrived at the bridge, I could see the damage from the street level. The main support beam had a visible gap in it, like someone had taken a giant hacksaw to the steel. It was exactly what Dr. Williams had predicted, total structural failure under cyclical loading, even from normal passenger car traffic. Ashley Martinez was already there with 2 city engineers and a police captain. She looked like she'd been up all night. Jason, the injunction was approved at 4 a.m., she said, showing me the official paperwork. The bridge is officially closed to all heavy vehicle traffic pending structural repair. What about Kane? That's where it gets interesting. When we served the papers at 5 a.m., Kane wasn't at his hotel. Security found him at the bridge site with a welding crew trying to patch the crack with a steel plate. I stared at her. He was trying to hide the evidence? Worse, he was trying to create a temporary fix so the convoy could cross on schedule. The welder refused to do it once he saw how bad the crack was. Shane Collins appeared at my elbow. Mr. Rodriguez, there's something else. Kane's been making calls all morning trying to get the injunction overturned. He told Commissioner Walsh that you fabricated the evidence to sabotage the project. At 6:30 a.m., Dr. Williams arrived with her full analysis. She took one look at the split beam and shook her head. "This is catastrophic structural failure," she announced to the group of officials gathered around the bridge. "If heavy vehicles had crossed this bridge this morning, we would have seen complete collapse. The death toll would have been significant." Commissioner Walsh showed up 20 minutes later with Kane and 2 lawyers in tow. Walsh was a political animal, but he wasn't stupid. When Dr. Williams showed him the technical analysis and the photos of the split beam, his face went pale. "How many trucks were supposed to cross this morning?" he asked quietly. 18, Kane said. "But Commissioner, Rodriguez has been sabotaging this project from the beginning. He's been spreading false information." "Brandon, shut up." Walsh turned to Dr. Williams. "Ma'am, in your professional opinion, what would have happened if those trucks had attempted to cross? Complete structural collapse within the first few vehicles. The bridge would have failed catastrophically, taking multiple trucks and their drivers with it." Walsh looked at Kane like he'd just discovered a snake in his office. "You assured me this bridge was safe. It was safe. Rodriguez is exaggerating the danger to cover his own incompetence." That's when Ashley stepped forward with the material substitution evidence. "Commissioner, we've discovered that Mr. Kane personally approved the use of substandard materials throughout the renovation project. The structural failure was inevitable." Kane tried to interrupt, but Walsh held up his hand. "Brandon, you're terminated effective immediately. Security will escort you from the premises." But the real vindication came 3 hours later, when the local news broke the story. "Bridge disaster averted by." Whistleblower engineer read the headline. They interviewed Dr. Williams, who explained in clear terms how close the city had come to a major catastrophe. My phone rang constantly for the rest of the day. The first call was from Ryan. "Dad, I just saw the news. Are you okay?" "I'm fine, son. How are things at your firm?" Funny thing about that. My supervisor called me into his office this morning, said he'd heard about what happened with the bridge. I thought I was getting fired. And he offered me a promotion. Said any engineer whose father would risk his career to prevent a disaster was someone they wanted to invest in long term. The second call was from the mayor's office offering me Kane's job as project director. I turned it down, but recommended Ashley for a promotion to chief structural oversight. The third call was from a consulting firm specializing in infrastructure safety analysis. Better pay, full autonomy over safety decisions, and the authority to shut down any project that didn't meet standards. By evening, the story had made national news. The relief convoy was successfully rerouted through the tunnel system, adding 90 minutes to their journey, but getting the supplies to the disaster area safely. The bridge was closed for 4 months while crews replaced the entire support structure with properly rated materials. Kane disappeared from public view. Last I heard, he was facing federal fraud charges for the material substitutions. The lawyers were arguing about whether it was criminal negligence or just incompetence, but the result was the same. His career in infrastructure was over. 6 months later, Ryan and I were having dinner when he brought up the bridge project. "Dad, I've been thinking about what you told me that day about integrity not being situational." "What about it?" "I used to think that was just something you said, like a motto or something. But watching how everything played out, seeing what it cost you to do the right thing and seeing what it cost Kane to do the wrong thing, I get it now." "Get what?" "That integrity isn't just about being honest. It's about being willing to pay the price for being honest, even when that price seems too high." I looked at my son, 22 years old, and already understanding something that took me years to learn. "Ryan, you know what the best part about this whole thing was?" "What?" "It wasn't proving that I was right about the bridge. It was proving to you that the principles I taught you actually mean something. Last week, I drove across the Riverside Bridge on my way to inspect a new highway overpass project. The steel felt solid under the wheels. No vibrations, no warning signs. Just good, honest engineering holding everything together the way it should. The new support beams gleamed in the morning sunlight, properly rated for heavy commercial traffic, installed by engineers who understood that cutting corners on safety isn't just wrong, it's deadly. Sometimes I think about what would have happened if I'd signed that certification. 18 trucks loaded with emergency supplies, crossing at highway speed, trusting that someone had done their job correctly. The image keeps me awake some nights. but not because of guilt. Because of gratitude, that experience and stubbornness and a willingness to sacrifice career advancement had been enough to prevent disaster. Kane was wrong about one thing. This industry isn't small enough for someone to blacklist a good engineer who's willing to stand up for safety. There are always projects that need someone who won't compromise on the fundamentals, someone who understands that reputation and integrity take decades to build and only seconds to destroy. And there's always another bridge that needs someone to listen to what the steel is trying to say. Experience over credentials. In the end, 25 years of listening to steel taught me more about structural integrity than any Harvard MBA could learn, from spreadsheets and meeting rooms. Integrity as legacy. The bridges we build outlast the careers we sacrifice for them, but the principles we pass to the next generation outlast everything.